You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. So, as a special bonus for this episode, there is one thing that I wanted to bring to the attention to our listeners. We have somebody very special in our group of intellectuals at OffHeap that is actually running for a position in the Java community process. So, we support, we definitely support Josh Juno, who is running for one of the community seats at the Java community process. And I wanted to give him an opportunity to make this spiel for everybody who actually listens to these podcasts about why they should actually vote or support him on being a community leader in the JCP process.
Well, thanks, Freddie. I just am going to be representing Chicago Java User Group. Actually, if we are able to get elected, you should elect us, because I think that we will bring forth the voice of the Chicago community and all the Java leaders in Chicagoland. So that's kind of our platform, is to bring forth the different voices. We cover lots of different topics in the Java realm within Chicagoland, from Java SE to Jakarta Ee, microprofile, Spring, everything is kind of in this arena. And so we have a broad user base and broad community in Chicago, and we would bring that voice forward into the votes for moving things forward through the JCP.
No, and to be fair, like a lot of these representatives, they're either private companies or they're open source projects. The fun part of having an actual Java user group is that you don't have like an interest in a particular technology or stuff. You actually are there advocating for really, and the fun part about Chicago is you're advocating for Java developers, because there's tons of them in Chicago, right? So we can use Josh as a proxy for having a seat for the run-of-the-mill developer. He didn't create new frameworks. They don't own like new open source projects, but they are like really just trying to make things work and
having things great for the community.
Yep, and making Java great again. So that's why I think that having somebody who represents a user group in there, even though I was part of the Chicago Java Users Group, now I'm part of the Seattle Java Users Group. I think that having any user group representing at the table of the Java community process is a big win. So if you happen to be a JCP member, and even if you aren't, you can actually register and vote. Just give Josh a consideration. Yeah, I think he will be a great representative for all developers, not necessarily just in Western Chicago.
I appreciate that, and just get out there and vote. Don't forget to vote.
Welcome to Java OffHeap episode 55. Hey everyone, hope that you'll be safely isolating in your humble abode. I'm Freddie Guimel, one of the co-hosts here at Java OffHeap, principal engineer at Expedia, Java champion, speaker, author, and I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hey, everybody. Bob Paulin, independent consultant from Chicago, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, and CJUG executive board chair.
Mm-hmm. Everyone, is Josh Juno, Java developer, database administrator by day. I'm an author and open source contributor by night. I'm a Java champion, Apache NetBeans committer, CJUG board member, and I also help lead the open source initiative there. Member of the Jakarta Ee ambassadors, author, blogger, and I just enjoy developing code.
Yeah.
And I'm Michael Manella, member of the Spring engineering team at VMware, author, speaker, Java champion, curmudgeon at large.
All right. And we have like a jam-packed agenda for today. But before we dive in, I wanted to thank our sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, the monitoring and analytics platform for end-to-end visibility into your Java application. Datadog provides customizable dashboards, algorithm alerts, and distributed tracing in one place to help you resolve detected Java problems faster. With support for over 400 technologies and automatic instrumentation for popular Java frameworks, you can start monitoring your Java application alongside the rest of your stack in minutes. Start your free Datadog trial today to start monitoring your Java applications in real time. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. Again, that's javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. And we thank them for being sponsors of the show. They keep the mics going and the beers flowing even in this COVID-19 time. So thank you, Datadog, for sponsoring us. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. So let's dive into it. I guess we first start with events, right?
Wait, what are those?
There are weird things where you just watch the screen.
Oh, kind of like this. Now. So this is an event now. It's our monthly event. So I'll kick off the events just because this one's near and dear to us here in Chicago. Is we got jconf.dev coming September 30th. And like almost every other event right now, it is virtual. A lot of big name speakers thrown by the same folks we know and love from DevNexus. So if you've been to Atlanta for DevNexus, they're trying to bring some of that mojo here to Chicago and do a big Java, web development, Kubernetes, all that good cloud stuff here local in Chicago. But even if you're not in Chicago, it's virtual. So show up anyways. And come check it out. So September 30th, it's a one-day, several track event. So come check it off. We'll have the link to the event in the show notes.
Are you speaking, Bob?
I am not actually. So I've been actually bad on the speaker circuit, but we can talk about that later on, I suppose.
Yeah. Then I guess the next
I can
one
take
is
the next
by
one
the
if you
same.
want.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go, Josh.
All right, next one is DevNexus. And we all know and we've heard of DevNexus before. Usually this is not happening online, but this year it is a virtual conference. Some great speakers will be there, I'm sure. This will be one you would not want to miss. It's on February 17th, 2021. And actually, the call for papers is still open until October 1st. So if you want to try and speak there.
Josh, did you just take the one that you've never been to?
Yes, I did.
Are you going to attend this year's?
It's virtual, Josh. You can do it.
Yeah, come on. What's your excuse this year?
I have no excuse. I'll be there this year.
All right.
Awesome. There we go. That's what I want to hear.
Maybe we should be there. So
yes, we have to get it. So we have to submit to the call for papers. So we'll be getting ours in too, and we recommend our viewers if we get this out and edited before October 1st.
All right. Yeah. Toast for that.
Cheers.
I can take the next one too if you want. Eclipsecon. This one is happening October 19th and 20th. It's all things Eclipse. There's actually going to be a community day as well. And I will be speaking at that on Jakarta Ee and Microprofile, along with co-presenter Edwin. And we're going to be doing that on the 18th of October. So come to Eclipsecon, and it's all virtual. Learn about all things Eclipse.
Okay, so the community day is the day before the conference, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right. So who put the Java Champions Conference on there? That's a new one this year, right?
I dropped it on here. Yeah, it is a new one. It's, given the fact that, as you guys all mentioned, that everything's virtual due to the current situation that everybody's in, the Java Champions decided, we're all distributed. The chances of getting all the Java Champions or a large collection of them together in real life is slim to none in any normal year. The fact that we could actually do it all remote, probably not a bad idea. So, yeah, there's going to be a Java Champions Conference 2021, to use their tagline, virtually everywhere. Online Wednesday, January 13th, Thursday the 14th. They're skipping Friday, then they're doing Monday the 18th and Tuesday the 19th of January 2021. It'll be all Java champions. The CFP is currently open, so the talk tracks aren't currently out yet, but should be good. Check it out.
That's awesome.
Actually, on the 15th too, just so you are aware, that's DawsCon will be going on. That's going to be online too, and that's the annual event that's been held for the last few years.
That's in Canada usually, right? Yep.
Yep.
Josh, you're actually one of the CFP members for the champions. Right?
Yep. Kind of helping them organize this one, put it together.
So send my talk proposal to you, or
Yeah. With a $20 bill.
Send it through. There'll be a lot of good speakers there. That's to be.
so then I'm out.
Oh, that's
Got it.
$50.
Then I'm out. Got it. No problem.
That's the one that Ken Fogel runs, right? Is that his conference? Because that's up at the university.
He runs DawsCon, but yeah, he runs DawsCon, but then he was given the platform to, since it's online, to present, a few days before and a few days after DawsCon, so kind of bookending it.
Got it.
And he gave it to the Java champions. So.
Oh, got it. All right, and that I think rounds out our events. Should we go into our news items then?
Yeah.
All right. So the first one I added on, and it was just one of those things that kind of slid in through my LinkedIn that I don't know has been out in any of the kind of mainstream news, because it's more of just a filing. But JFrog, one of our kind of favorite Java companies, has filed a an S1, which is usually a precursor to going public. So, they're makers of Artifactory and a number of other tools associated with Java deployments and artifacts. Just interesting to see, in this environment, a lot of technology companies are still doing well. People are still going public. So will be interesting to see what happens there. Is there a buyer? Is this going to be, a Facebook type thing? Who knows?
I just pulled up the S1, and compared to a lot of tech IPOs, these numbers they're actually pretty good. I mean, losing less than $1 million right before an IPO, that's great. Frankly, 50% year over year revenue growth. They work with 75% of the Fortune 100. I mean, their numbers are impressive. It's one of those niche things that, to be completely transparent, I always assumed that instead of a public filing, they were going to get bought at some point.
Yeah.
But hey, congratulations to them. It's a great accomplishment, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of people we really esteem on their team. So
Baruch is buying beers next time we see him, right?
Baruch's there. Stephen Chen is there. Vince, I think, just recently joined too. So those last ones are relatively new additions, so I would still go back to Baruch for the round, because he probably has the most. He has the most stock.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but cool.
But they run the IPO bell, so yeah, I think that's wow. So that just happened like today or yesterday, the 16th or the 15th of September. So
yeah,
so that was fun.
Oh, very cool. So the next one on the agenda, I put this on there because of you, Michael. So you were on the Eclipse call that they had, where they were talking about their move to Brussels, I believe it is, over to the EU. Anything of note from that call? Any new findings? Anything of interest?
So really, the two things of interest. So first of all, current state of where are they at in the process? Currently, the ballots are out to the members. Basically, they're looking for the members to approve the move. I'm pretty sure that's going to just get passed and move through. I don't expect any real resistance to this move. The only other thing I would add is, I asked, so Mike Milkovich, who's a good friend of the podcast, he's been on before. Would love to have him back on once this settles down a little bit, to get a kind of state of the state. But I asked him, what's the driver for this? What he's not moving to Brussels. he called out on the call that the majority of the operations aspect of the Eclipse Foundation is still going to stay exactly where they're at. They're still going to keep U.S. Tax filing status with regards to being non-for-profit and that kind of thing. So like, what's the driver here? And really, for him, he said it came down to growth. As the Eclipse Foundation becomes more and more involved in specs and that kind of thing, the EU is just known to be more interested in those kinds of things. They're a lot more into raw specifications. The Jakarta Ee space is just, they tend to latch onto that more than the rest of the world. And he said, the majority of their members are already over there. And so they're looking at this as a growth play. So they're looking at this as a way to increase revenue by increasing membership by going over there and engaging more directly over there. It makes sense.
All right. So wow, changing gears a little bit here. So we were talking about JFrog going public. So this kind of feels like intruding on a little bit of their space. So GitHub is doing container registries now. So if you have your project where you're building a Docker container out of it, you can host it right there on GitHub. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out.
Yeah, big difference is on-prem versus off-prem.
I don't know. Is it? So is it pay for private then, or is it?
Even though it's private, though, I know a lot of companies just won't let their source code off their network.
Right.
And so the idea that this is public cloud versus private cloud, right? I fully view that there's space for both of these offerings, at least in today's market.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Now we're finally getting into some more Java news. So just recently, last week, Java 15 was released. Woo-hoo. So yet another. So we've got 9 through 15 on the new cycle where they're releasing, twice a year, every 6 months. Mm-hmm. Everything's been on time. Very impressive track record for the last several releases. And this one's not an LTS, right?
Correct.
But isn't the next one, or is it two in the future? 17. So we've got 2 more, and then we've got an LTS.
Ooh, nice.
Anybody know what's the best thing in this release?
We have records.
Oh yes, records.
That was in 14. Oh, is it records
like
GA? Because that was a preview. That was a preview thing in 14.
Yeah. It's part of it now.
Okay.
And then there's also the Z garbage collector.
Yeah, CGZ.
Okay, and that's not experimental anymore, right?
Yep.
So is Shenandoah is not.
Yep.
That one's not a
preview. Classes.
Okay, it says second preview on records, so it must be.
So here's
still kind of a beta.
So here's kind of the list. Second incubator for foreign memory access API. Foreign memory access API. So the unsafe starting to address some of that need. A preview on sealed classes. Removal of source code for building on Solaris Spark, Solaris x64, etc.
Retired.
Yep.
Records, cryptographic signatures based on Edwards curve digital signature algorithm, re-implementing the legacy datagram socket API. So this was the new socket stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think it wasn't experimental in an earlier release then. I mean, I feel like a lot of things just have matured.
Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't, in the article I'm looking at, it doesn't say that it's a preview of any kind. So
yeah, same thing with text blocks. I feel like that was something that they had in a prior release, but now it's official. Looking forward to using those. Actually, I've got way too many string concatenation things on client projects. So
pattern matching for instance of hidden classes.
Ooh, nice.
Z garbage collectors. There's a bunch of cool stuff in here. Text blocks, like you said. So it's worth checking out.
Removal
nice
of
little release. And then if you didn't catch the Oracle Developer Day, the Developer Live Day for the Americas the other day, on Java 15, there were some really good sessions, and one of those was Venkat. He was showing off some of the Java 15 features. It was really good in Venkat style. live coding.
Yeah, we should cover that on Clubhouse too. So.
Yeah, I guess one more thing of note here with JDK 15 is that a feature has matured out, and that's the Nashorn JavaScript engine. That's now
Yes.
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah.
Just seems like yesterday they were promoting that over the Rhino implementation that was there before Nashorn. Yeah, no, I mean, it's all moving on to Graal now. If you're going to do JavaScript in the JVM, use Graal is kind of the corporate line there. So we'll see where that goes. So, I mean, Nashorn is no more. Graal is the future. So,
Yep.
and onward to 16. 16 doesn't look like there's a whole lot populated there yet. The only thing that I see as a JEP is the Elastic Metaspace, which is something I haven't heard about.
Sounds very Avengers-like.
Yes, it does. Elastic Metaspace.
So does 16 come out in January then? Or is it December?
Well, it'd be 6 months, so I would think it would be March,
6
right?
months. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I
March.
think they're on a
Sorry,
6 months
Yeah.
because then the next LTS is September.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Oh my God.
Makes sense. I was on the
Yeah, actually-
profile schedule in my head.
We haven't officially come out with anything, but the prevailing assumption is that Spring Framework 6 will be based on Java 17 with the LTS.
Nice.
Kind of the assumption.
I'm still like have like 8 projects that need to migrate to 11.
11. Yeah, no, I've got one client that's just starting to move there, but just for their build process. They're still compiling it down to 8 for the runtime, but they're building to 11 because there's tools we use that require building on 11. But it's like, but we don't want to upgrade the runtime so close to the holiday. So it's one of those interesting in between situations. But, you know, fortunately, the compiler works just fine going down to
Yeah,
the 8
no,
so far.
If there is one saving grace is that Java every
Oh, did we lose you, Freddie? Oh, you kind of trailed off there.
No, I was gonna say the saving grace of the JDK upgrades that I have done is that most of the time it's like known issues that was well documented, and most of the time it's painless, especially after that big one from 8 to 9. That was definitely painful, but after that it's trying 8 to 11 or 9, 10 to 11. Oh, sorry, 9 to 11 or 10 to 11 has been nothing.
Yeah. No, that's been my experience too. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Josh, here's a Jakarta EE 9 update. Do you have an update for us on Jakarta EE?
So Jakarta EE 9 was originally scheduled to be released in September, which is now, and that didn't happen. And so they did some discussions and figured out a new release date, which is now November 20th. So the final Jakarta EE 9 release will be occurring in November.
They say anything why there was a delay, or?
I'm not exactly sure what the main issue was, but I think all the specifications are going with Jakarta EE 9 as well. So I can speculate it had something to do with that. The documents, the namespace change is not that big of a deal especially for the APIs themselves. It's more of a vendor hurdle. All the containers are going to have to change. Right now, I know that we've only got Glassfish 6 that will work on Jakarta EE 9 to date. So I'm not sure if that could have been one of the reasons as well. There are no other servers that will work with it yet.
Just waiting for some of the other vendors to catch up come release dates.
That's a normal lag though, isn't it?
Yeah. I recall IBM and other vendors just kind of, I think IBM was one of the first ones to get 8 done, right?
Usually
was it
IBM's
Red Hat?
leading.
I mean, now it's the same thing, but
Well, there's usually
Big Purple?
Wildfly and
yes.
Pyara is usually right up there.
Yeah.
So I imagine that they'll be probably, if they're not done with their Jakarta EE 9 version that we close. Those couple.
All right. So we talked about GitHub a little bit earlier, but now we've also got a little bit more news with GitHub. Is Java is on GitHub. Long talked about moving to Git. So they completed that, and now the JDK, OpenJDK, is on GitHub. So should be able to go out. JDK, GitHub. And there they are.
It's nice.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, but that is not for country. Like that is that the thing that they do, like the mirror, or are they really moving the whole process?
That's a good question. I mean, so, with like Apache projects, they have a mirror on GitHub. You can still submit pull requests, and there's ways to like sync the things back. But I don't know exactly what the workflow is for OpenJDK. I see pull requests here on the GitHub site. So people are submitting PRs and things directly to GitHub, because these would not show up unless they actually came through the GitHub, issues and branches and everything. So they might be dedicated on GitHub. I guess if we go to the OpenJDK and we look for their source control, they would probably tell us which is the main one. No, they're saying the mainline code repository is GitHub. So if you go to the OpenJDK project site, mainline code repository, so it's not a mirror. That's the main thing.
Cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big move.
That is crazy because it's always it's tough, right? Because one of the things I always say, like, to be it's almost like being not quite, but like being a Linux kernel contributor, right? Like you have to be very specialized to say, "Ooh, I need to change this, or this is what's going to make it better," and then being moving the whole thing on the public, while it's appreciated. I wonder how they're going to handle sort of like that influx of somebody saying, "Oh, I can implement recursion by doing this thing," and it's like, no, you break 100 more things when you do that.
I mean, it's part of the maturity of an open source project, right? I mean, open source projects have to do that, and even to what you're describing, the average person, like, I can't imagine the JDK getting the average college kid kind of pull requests, right? Where, to your point, like they're gonna grab some random thing and implementing stuff in the JDK is hard. So I don't imagine too many people are going to just jump into that and create frivolous pull requests.
No,
it'd be like line it contributing pull requests to the Linux kernel. Like, that's not an easy thing to get to even work. So I wouldn't expect the volume of frivolous stuff as I would for like any random Java framework, for example.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just my thinking.
You have your pull requests.
Yeah, no, I mean, Apache has had large projects.
We are all open source. We are all experienced in the open source world. We all know that there's a range of quality of pull requests. But part of that is, it's one of the reasons, Bob and I do that talk about breaking into open source. And we talk about, it's one of the benefits of doing those pull requests is getting that mentorship, learning the rights and the wrongs from the top people in the industry. So like, it all comes with getting into this game.
Yeah, it's usually the opposite, is that you're not getting the kind of traffic. I mean, this is moving to GitHub is a move to put the code in front of more people. It's putting it in their search index. It's putting it. You're lowering the bar to entry, and typically in open source projects, the lower the bar is to entry, where there's no friction, the better off you are, because that person that may have some sort of idea, or maybe it's a small idea. They can put the pull request out there, and people are usually so scared to death to put something out there in public that they're going to polish it and they're going to make it look good. Nobody wants to look bad and have, some OpenJDK contributor come in and say, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, and that doesn't really happen. So, I mean, it's one of those hypotheticals. You're like, well, what if somebody just bombards the project with pull requests? It just never really happens.
Got it. No, and I think you need what is called, I guess, a sponsor to work with you. I was reading the contributing OpenJDK guidelines, and I think that's sort of like how they make sure, right? Like if what you PR had like certain semblance of something that is good, then you work with the sponsor before actually even submitting it, I guess. Yep. Or considering for merging. But that's cool. Like it does give the ability for people to like try things out, right? Like download the code, try to build it. Like I know this was possible before, because I think even the Mercurial repository was open source, but it was. Yeah,
you could always download it. There was read access was always there, but it's like, do you know Mercurial? And it was all, and also, I don't know, you've built the JDK, Freddie. I know you've said you've built it before, but you have to run an entire script because you have to download different branches of the Mercurial. So there was not a simple, just check out the project. It was,
and that's exactly my point about, like the barrier to entry to getting even a hello world level PR into the JDK is so high that I wouldn't worry about.
You're saying like the riffraff will not submit a pull request. You're saying I will.
Seriously, yeah. I mean,
it's intimidating.
It is. It is.
No, and if there's someone that puts a malicious, do we lose Friday?
That's all right.
We lost Friday.
Yeah, we did. We'll wait for him.
If there's someone that puts a malicious pull request out there, they don't have to.
But he was loading, so it generated a WAV file for me.
Yeah, no, it kicked me out, or my network must be.
Oh, it says not recording now. So I'm still recording, so the video's still going.
Yeah, I'm gonna create a new one by clicking record.
Okay.
So
we're gonna be in different orders on your screen now.
Yes, we just shifted.
Ooh.
Like the Brady Bunch.
Were you
musical squares?
Where was Bob before?
Musical squares.
All right, but yeah, no, I mean it's all good. Like I think that this will maybe like raise the curiosity for that college student to like, oh, I'm gonna take a look at it, and they could become, because like I think that the contributors, like growing the new set of contributors to the OpenJDK is important, and you do need a lot of time and somebody mentoring you to become like a normal, like a sort of like a sponsor or like approved contributor to the OpenJDK, and we need those because this is an open source project now. So,
wouldn't that be pretty cool if at a university, as your final project, you had to download the OpenJDK and compile it and put something
and add a feature?
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Looking aside, like a lot of kids write a compiler as part of their computer science curriculum.
Grammar, your tokenizers.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it would be cool as like, extra credit, add a feature to the real deal.
Yeah.
No, it's gotten a lot easier over the years. I know a lot of the folks on the Adopt project have put so much work into the build pipeline to the point where you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do it anymore. I mean, I've built the JDK just reading the instructions document that they check into the project now. So, I mean, it's like they give you step-by-step instructions, and they have scripts and things that kind of abstract some of the hard parts away. So it doesn't actually have to be one of those things that it's like, hey, I'm got a PhD in computer science, I can build the JDK. It's like, really, give it a shot. You probably could do it. You may want to try it on Linux. It's definitely harder on Windows, but it's doable on Windows too. If you're familiar with like Visual Studio and a lot of the kind of the native Windows tools.
I think that, moving to GitHub, one of the things that I could see coming out of this will be, it's not wrong, but a maturity of Java as an open source project. It's technically been an open source project for forever, right? But like rule number one for an open source project, you got to be able to check it out and build it. Like without any hiccups, without any interruptions, you got to be able to get those two things almost no brainer. Otherwise, nobody's going to contribute to your project.
Yes.
And I think, that kind of
email. Yeah.
Pardon?
Go ahead. I was going to say, you don't want to have to send some back channel email to get your PR into the community.
Why it doesn't work?
Exactly. Yeah. You don't, and I mean, we know developers, like if those two steps fail, the chances of them contributing to the product reduce drastically. And so like, I can see this is step one, and then the step two is, improving that experience, improving that build process to a level where it does get to a point where it is check out, build, it works. Like, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but it's feels like the next step.
Yeah, no, and like the first pull request that we can do is like the instructions for the page still points to the Mercurial.
Well, there you go.
There. To the Mercurial repository. So maybe we can try doing the instructions on the GitHub one, see if that works.
Yeah.
All right. So fun times. If you have a lot of time at your hand, download it, build it. It's on GitHub now. It's easier to get to.
Yes. No. And to Michael's point, the other thing to point out is that is another thing you want in your open source project is diversity of your community. You don't want one company or one contributor to be doing things. And Martin Verberg actually tweeted out a graphic on his Twitter about issues fixed in JDK 15 per organization. And of course, there's a big blue square for Oracle, but you see a lot of organizations growing around it, Red Hat, SAP, ARM, and there's a little blue box down there called independent. So I love seeing that, where you have people that aren't even assigned to any of these big companies that are helping out and doing things. So, I mean, that's a healthy ecosystem. That's what you want. And it's good to see that happening with the JDK.
Agreed.
Yep.
So we'll include a link to that in the show notes, but did want to call that out. So, so this one, we're going to have to give this to Michael because he gets a little bit of bragging rights on our good friend on the last podcast, Mr. Hurst, Cedric Hurst, about somebody joined Oracle.
So the interesting thing with this is so you're gonna have to edit this part out, but by the time we release this, will we've released the previous one?
Yes, we'll do it synchronously.
Okay. So, all right. I wish I remembered my exact quote from the previous one.
There's something about Cedric pulling his foot out of his mouth, I think, but
or from somewhere, right?
Or maybe that was Cedric that said he needed to do that.
So, Graeme Rocher, the leader, the founder of the Grails project, the founder of the Micronaut project, left OCI, and what do you know? He joined Oracle specifically to work on Helidon. Is that how you pronounce it? Helidon?
Helidon sounds right.
I'm horrible at pronunciation, so I apologize in advance. But the funny thing is like this is essentially a competing framework with Micronaut. They both target the Graal JVM as the target platform. Like, stick a fork in Micronaut. He's moving to Helidon, or they're consolidating in some capacity.
Which is sort of interesting, right? Like because. The interesting part was like Micronaut created the foundation, whatever was the foundation, and I think that's how we got into it. Like, and
I'm sure that's how the reason for that was. Otherwise, Graeme would have not have been able to retain controlling rights to it before.
And that's something
as the lead leaving a company like OCI owned the IP, right? Because we all signed those agreements, right? So. Yeah. The only way he could can maintain as the lead of Micronaut is it's got to go to a neutral party. So let's create a foundation, dump it there. He can maintain control. Like I said in the last episode, OCI really didn't care. I mean, they were using it as marketing. It was never like it obviously wasn't getting them big dollars because there's not a lot of market share there. So OCI is moving on from Micronaut. This is just another Graeme is going to be moving on in some capacity, whether it's, like I said, whether it's Micronaut converging, whether or not with Illidan, if there's something else, like we'll see how that plays out. But my personal belief is that stick a fork in it.
So are we predicting that? Okay, this is gonna be like the predictions for the next year, right? Like, so is Micronaut gonna disappear then? Like, because like Graeme is gonna be start working on Helidon, and I don't know how can you be sitting on both Micronaut and Helidon at the same time unless either you converge or you let it go, but you can't have anything else, right?
You're preaching to the choir there, man. I firmly believe that the two frameworks enter, one framework leaves. In this case, like he can't support them both.
Monday.
I mean, he's not going to support. He's not going to support them both. It's not a realistic ask. I mean, even stepping back from the fact that I'm on the Spring team and competitive things, like putting on my manager, switching hats from engineer to my manager hat. Like I've got a guy who's an expert in this stuff. I've got two frameworks. Let's sort this duplication stuff out and move on. Like that feels like the right thing to do anyways.
So to be fair though, with Helidon, you're not creating front ends, right? It's just microservices, right?
Same with Micronaut.
I think it's Micronaut is the same, right?
But Micronaut, you can do front end.
Right?
Can?
What?
They have like a time leaf for templating. And so I've not used Micronaut. So
I doubt Timeleaf because Timeleaf isn't actively maintained very much anymore.
Yeah, no, I haven't done much with Micronaut for a while, so forgive me if I'm wrong.
Let me see. Give me a minute. Because they had that initializer thing. That was kind of the copy of Spring Initializer.
Right.
Features, API cache, client, cloud, config, database.
Yeah, so it's just
maybe I'm
client
wrong.
and servers
Yeah, I don't see anything obvious here for.
for like
Yeah.
I mean, and even still, like every microservice framework would integrate with some type of, whether it be Timeleaf, Mustache, etc. Insert templating engine here kind of thing.
all right. Yeah, I mean,
I was just thinking of Grails probably because that's got the front end.
Yeah, that's different with all the generation of the controllers and that kind of thing. I don't think it does that.
Right.
yeah, it looks like, the alignment seems like what's different. I know we've talked about on the show with Micronaut having things literally copied from the Spring framework copied, where it looks
if you go by their search features, there's a whole Spring framework section: Spring Boot, Spring Data JDBC, Spring Data JPA, Spring Web. I mean, and what now, full disclosure, all those do is it adds in support for our annotations. So you drop in our annotations, it's all still Micronaut behind the scenes. There's no Spring code behind there.
Micronaut for Spring.
It's easy to like transition.
Right. But when you look at Helidon, it's all microprofile based.
Correct.
So, they're going off the microprofile standard. And again, Oracle's invested money in, they're Jakarta Ee, right? They're one of the backers of that. So, there are specs involved that I think they're going for, it's a different flavor of the same recipe.
So we'll keep, obviously we'll track this. We'll keep people updated on where this goes. But that's my prediction, and it was the timing could not have been better because Graeme's announcement was the day after we recorded our episode.
Yeah.
No. So just to be able to play back this episode at some point in the near future or far future. So what do you think is going to be? Is it going to be two frameworks still? Like Micronaut is going to be exist, or they're just going to converge? What do you guys think?
I don't think you're looking at conversion, because I think if you're basing one off of microprofile and the other more aligned to Spring, I think converging is going to be difficult.
Yeah,
I think it's going to exist. I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's going to have as much behind it, but
that's like that zombie state though is like the same as not if it's almost like saying like it's dead. Right?
Think back to the framework wars from 10, 12 years ago. There were certain frameworks that won and certain frameworks that lost. JBoss, Seam. Who's using that anymore? Some people, but not a lot. Not a lot. It's not a popular, well-used framework like Spring MVC, Spring Boot. Even Struts is, I would say, has probably more market share than JBoss Seam. Just because when it hit the market and what the user base is and what the community is.
Well, I know that we've spoken about. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to cut you.
No,
off.
good.
I know that we've spoken about kind of Groovy losing, popularity. This is probably the last Groovy or the only Groovy web framework really right now, isn't it? Is there any other out there?
I mean, Grails is technically still out there.
It's still there technically, but this kind of replaced it, didn't it?
I think that was the intent.
Yeah. So if you're a Groovy developer, you'll stick with Micronaut, I imagine. But
that must be like, what are the compelling reasons for like going to Groovy instead of like Kotlin or even just the next versions of Java, right? Like Groovy was there to alleviate some of the like verbosity and stuff, but
yeah, I think Kotlin addressed all that and still gave you type safety and whatnot. So
It's familiarity.
Let's put it this way. But when the maintainers of the Groovy language proposed to switch their Gradle system to Kotlin, you kind of realize
that broke loose. Like hell broke loose that day.
Oh, I know it.
We talked about that on the show.
I know.
So.
Yep. But it kind of sends up the red flag that maybe there's some writing on the wall.
And I feel the same. Like it's not a death knell, but it's gonna be a very tough for Micronaut to claw back. Like if it really is like Graeme Rocher is gonna concentrate its and it may not be. Maybe this is all still like conjecture because it's in the future. But I don't think it's gonna survive.
Yeah. Well, we'll have time. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
I
could be definitely wrong.
But we've got more Oracle on the agenda with the next two things. Oracle again. So this takes us all the way back to our first episode, but it's finally coming to a head because the Google versus Oracle lawsuit is on the Supreme Court docket. It's happening in October. It's there, and it hasn't moved again. So
we'll cover it.
We should be getting some closure on this thing at some point in the near future, or at least hear arguments. Biting. Yes, Michael's biting his nails. I'm biting mine too. I mean, these absolutely have implications for software developers, copyrightable APIs.
Do we know? So I know that some of the recent Supreme Court hearings have been done virtually and they've been broadcast. Mm-hmm. Do we know if this will be one?
That's a good question. So I think I have the docket up here. Let me look here. So I might flip to the Google Oracle. So the arguments start October 7th. Justice to hear by phone, court release calendar. This is all the backstory. So I don't see a link to it yet. If there is one on the SCOTUS blog or any of the Supreme Court. But I guess if we find one, we should put it in the show notes because I think that would be great for us.
We'll tweet it out as well.
We'll take a look. But it's definitely, it's coming. The Supreme Court is stated they're going to hear it, and they pushed it back once, and now it's there October 7th. So hopefully by the time we're having the next show, we should be knee deep in arguments. So we'll see what happens.
All right. And the next one is just one of those news that I just don't understand.
Yeah, Freddie, you added this one. You always add the fun ones, so.
It's like Oracle purchased TikTok. So
match made in heaven.
So, do you want to give a little backstory on where this started because of for our international listeners?
Correct. So the interesting part is like the current Trump administration was complaining that TikTok, which is a famous, I guess, video sharing platform, is mostly Chinese, sort of like a Chinese-run company. And one of the problems that TikTok has was that, or the the current administration has, is that you're leaking information about the United States users to like Chinese officials. So even though TikTok says like, no, we're not doing that and stuff like that, we understand that in China they might do that and nobody will bat an eye on it. So the latest thing that happened was that the Trump administration said, nope, it has to be an American company or we're going to ban TikTok from U.S. Shores. So it was under the threat of TikTok being illegal in the U.S. There were a couple of companies that stepped up to try to buy it. Microsoft was, I thought Microsoft at one point
Microsoft was one of them. I think they rejected Microsoft's offer.
Yeah, wanted to like purchase it. The interesting side story on that, it was like President Trump said that he wanted to get in on the deal, which I'm not exactly sure what that meant, or if it's even possible. But I guess he wants a cut with whoever company buys TikTok, and I guess
so let's make sure we're clear on the verb. TikTok will be an independent company. They are not being bought by Oracle. They will be business partners in the United States. TikTok will still be an independent company. They'll basically create a new entity in the U.S. that Oracle will be a partner with.
So they're going to break off from their Chinese parent.
Correct.
And then I guess Oracle is going to foot the bill for them to.
Yeah, they haven't come out with the full details yet. But the key detail that I have heard, and even the article in our that we'll include in our notes, calls out that the first sentence: TikTok and Oracle would become business partners in the U.S. A deal meant to satisfy the Trump administration's national security concerns. Blah blah blah. Yeah, they're not like Oracle is not buying TikTok. Now, granted, it would be. Any relationship here feels about it makes as much sense as Java and the Yahoo toolbar. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But hey, if Larry and Donald want to do a deal, and this is what keeps the site going,
Lord. Yeah, and just trying to figure out what are we gonna have like when you download your Java your JD. It's like, do you want to start broadcasting your TikTok?
Maybe Larry will be doing a TikTok dance on there.
Yeah, it's not the Yahoo toolbar; it's going to be the TikTok toolbar.
Oh my God! Oh Lord! That's how they go. They get back their desktop.
And if you don't know what TikTok is, ask your kids. So I mean, they certainly do.
I know. So. I'm sure that most of the generation that uses TikTok probably doesn't even know what Oracle is.
No, that they're trying to break into a new market.
Seriously. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! But well, like Save Ventures, and now I am so like I wonder what TikTok's technology stack is gonna be then. All right. So, oh my gosh, next one. I think I put. Was this?
We talked about this a little bit. This is Shenandoah in Java 11. We talked about this a little bit in the last episode, and I think it was still unresolved at that point. But they did end up backporting it. I think is just kind of the news item there. And so I thought we were almost unanimous in like, hey, should we really be doing this? There was conversation on the list. I know they kind of set a bar for what kind of expectations they would want, feature flags, the ability to compile without Shenandoah, if you wanted to in your release. And I feel like they caved to a lot of those as long as they could get Shenandoah in Java 11. So that it did end up happening with, some caveats and some ways to remove it. But still a little bit of I don't know, kind of a, really, did that just happen? We don't usually do that in Java.
pretty disappointing.
No, that's scary if it's a trend, if it was something that, because to be honest, like it rarely happens, or at least it rarely happens in a visible way on things that are of importance. Like I think this is just too big, right? Like, adding a whole new garbage collector, backporting one garbage collector is, I don't know. It always feels fraught with peril. So don't do it.
Yeah, it's an argument I make at my clients a lot of time. Yeah, we'll just feature flag it. We'll barricade it off so that we can turn it off whenever we need to. I feel comfortable doing that with a lot of my clients' code, not with the JDK though.
Yep. Yeah. The next one.
All right. Suse Linux acquiring Rancho Labs. So this one's just, again, a lot of buyouts happening right now in the tech sphere. It seems like it may have slowed down a little bit. But this was one that's kind of happening in the Kubernetes space, the cloud Kubernetes space, where Rancho Labs is being bought by a Linux distribution company, which is kind of interesting.
I find this one interesting because while I've heard of Suse back, when I was trying to install Linux on my desktop back in college and, compiling stuff to make modems work and that kind of thing, I haven't heard a lot of them since.
No.
Maybe I just haven't been missing it. But Rancher I have. Rancher's kind of a big deal in the Kubernetes space. So this is an interesting play for Suse to kind of gain relevancy again in the enterprise. And so I find this is an interesting play. We'll see how it works out for him. But I definitely think that, this will be interesting to see if Rancher can really get Suse that level of enterprise adoption that, frankly, they never got before.
Yeah, because Rancher has their own distribution. They have their own OS.
Good point. Obviously not for long.
Yeah, maybe not. Sorry, Freddie. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking, so what do they provide? They provide a complete software stack for teams adopting containers.
So Rancher is basically a Kubernetes distribution. So
yes,
if you're looking to deploy Kubernetes and you're not interested in going the open source route, which is at every enterprise on the planet, I want to go partner with a company, and Rancher is one of the ones that has a good footing with regards to where they're at in their Kubernetes story.
Yeah, I mean they used to actually have their own basically Kubernetes framework, which is the 1x version, and then 2x they built around Kubernetes. So I don't know if it's actually like its own Kubernetes distribution, but it's like it's a management app for managing Kubernetes. So if you have stuff in AWS and you have stuff in Azure, you have stuff that's on-prem, they have an interface that'll orchestrate the orchestrator, so to speak.
Their tagline is from data cloud to edge, Rancher lets you deliver Kubernetes as a service.
Yeah.
I see. And of course then the software stack that this needs to run, that's what I guess where Suse comes in, huh?
It could be, and maybe that's the play. It's, hey, you're going to be running this on Suse now, or it's going to be a first option. But yeah, the interesting thing is there's a Rancher OS that they have that basically just runs Docker that they had the old platform run. I don't know if the new platform runs on 1x. I think it just runs on Kubernetes, but...
Rancher not only deploys production-grade Kubernetes clusters from data center to cloud to the edge, it also unites them with centralized authentication, access control, and observability.
Yep.
So it basically will bootstrap your Kubernetes clusters and manage them for you. Which, again, every enterprise in the world looking to run Kubernetes is looking for something like this.
I see. So that's an interesting power play then for Suse.
Hats off to them. For them, I think it's a good idea. We'll see how successful they are with it, but I think it's good. Good try.
Yeah. Yep. Now the next one, who put this one in?
Nvidia Acquiring Arm. So it was not me.
It was probably me because it was an Apple link.
Yes. No, I think it was.
Nvidia acquired ARM for $40 billion.
That's big.
To use the I think the headline for the article that I linked to hits it really well. It's official. Nvidia acquires ARM for $40 billion to create what could be a computing juggernaut. I completely agree with that. You've got the GPU with Nvidia, who is just dominant in the space, and ARM, quite frankly, coming back, if you will. Intel, beat them up for many years. Macs and whatnot went from their power PCs to Intel, and now they're moving to ARM, and like this is going to be big, if they play this right. It'll be really fun to watch this going forward.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in the IoT space with this. Is their partnership there, because that's ARM's always been strong in the small factor, but they're getting into enterprise as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because they come from I think like different domains, right? Like Nvidia is usually like desktop. You always think about it as that's the GPU power, right?
Not necessarily. Yes, but Nvidia has also been, to Bob's point, been poking their nose into the IoT space. They've had an appliance is the wrong word, but they've had a component, I guess, for like virtualizing software within automobiles. So basically, you were giving you the ability to run virtualization within a car. So you could run,
that sounds like a good idea.
Well, that's kind of the whole point. It's the reason you haven't seen installable apps in cars, because it's like, well, wait a minute, if this goes sideways, somebody's going to get killed.
Yeah.
But they've been targeting, this capability of basically siloing out, the user. Think Apple Automotive. What is it? Apple CarPlay? Is that the name of it?
CarPlay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Think Apple CarPlay and the Android equivalent, right? So it's like that virtual machine, or that siloed infrastructure separate from what actually runs the car. And VMware's actually NVIDIA has stuff around that as well.
That's interesting. I thought that was not a big part of their strategy. I thought that they were always like more on the like compute intensive sort of side of the equation, because AWS is bringing, for example, in the cloud providers start bringing out like essentially CUDA clusters where you can actually have like high compute GPUs for essentially using like machine learning.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. But I agree. Like ARM is more on the like portable and IoT space. So it could be fun.
Well, right. I mean, with Apple, I am right that Apple's moving to ARM processors, right?
I thought we reported that on an earlier episode that they were adopting. And I don't know if it's exclusive. I know it's an option, at least.
Yeah. So I mean,
it will be exclusive.
It will be exclusive. Okay.
So I mean, they make some of their own chips, but moving specifically Mac stuff to ARM, that is obviously also gives NVIDIA another huge leg up there.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think moving a lot of the intelligence to the edge is a trend. If you can do some of the machine learning on edge. So I mean, the potential there is massive. Now, whether they realize it or not is to be seen. But because they're not just buying another company that does exactly what they do, it's a complementary offer. The synergy there could be it could be amazing.
Yep. Another one to watch out for. All right. Next one. IBM weighs in on Google open usage.
I don't know if I was the one that put this one, but unless somebody else wants it, I'll grab it. So going back to the Kubernetes ecosystem, right? The Kubernetes is an ecosystem. Kubernetes is only one piece of it. Google founded Kubernetes, and they founded other projects in that ecosystem. Kubernetes is kind of relatively openly governed. There are other components, though, that are not. Istio being kind of the poster child for not being. And Google originally agreed to put that into a place where the governance was more allowing people to be at equal footing. And they have not done that. The original plan, the agreement was to donate Istio to the CNCF. That has not happened, and Google has said they were not going to now. So really quick, the Istio is basically the ingress plane, the service mesh for Kubernetes. So it's a key piece of most Kubernetes installations. And IBM has been pushing hard to, IBM, I believe, well, Red Hat was before IBM bought them, but they were pushing hard to get this into a more neutral place other than just Google's stewardship. And Google is, this point is basically saying, no, they're not going to, which is not the best open source behavior. That being said, though, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out from here on out. Whether Big Purple decides to fork it, or if there's something else going on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it seems to be all around the governance. There's been talk that we've heard, that hey, Google they feel like they kind of missed out by putting Kubernetes into open governance, like they lost some control of the project. I feel there's
but they get a whole crap load of adoption.
Whole bunch of adoption. I mean, and that's the trade-off.
That's what you do, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you've already got that, or if you perceived you were going to get that anyways, I mean, well, why isn't Spring open governance? I mean, that if you want to,
we've got the adoption. You've
got the adoption already. So I mean, you don't want to give up the control.
I mean, so with the Kubernetes thing, this goes back to what I said. Was it last year or the year before, when IBM bought Red Hat? That acquisition really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Google should have bought Red Hat. And this is kind of just another example of
one of the reasons.
Yeah, exactly. This is an example of that, in my opinion. If Google buys Red Hat, all this bickering isn't as much of an issue, because Google is, quite frankly, doing a whole lot better on the enterprise side than they would be otherwise. Now, because they're not, they're looking at other ways to get that dominance, and withholding Istio is one way to do it.
No, we'll see. Governance is important, right? But yeah, if you don't care because you already have the adoption, then there's a lot of recourse there. Now let's go to a fun one. Mike.
Spring 1 recap. Woo! So Spring
Virtual,
1,
right?
It happened. It's awesome. So it was virtual. It was a couple weeks ago. Feel free to check it out. If you missed it, you can still register and watch all the recaps. They're all available on spring1.io. You just need to register. Yeah, it was, to be transparent, it was amazing. For a virtual conference, I don't think it could have gone better. We had over 41,000 registrants. When you consider the average Spring 1 has between 3,000 and 4,000 attendees normally, it's just, by every measure we've got, it was truly an amazing event. Really pleased with how everything. Encourage everybody who's interested at all in Spring to check it out, and yeah.
Put it in the show
that's what you think.
Well, do you speak? What were your topics?
I did speak. I spoke. I gave a talk, and I was an MC for a while.
Nice.
So it was a 2-day conference. So I gave an intro to Spring Batch talk. So if you are curious at all about Spring Batch and don't know anything about it, I gave my equivalent of a Spring Batch 101 talk. There are other talks that hit more advanced stuff later on if you're interested. But also I emceed for a while on day 2 in the advanced track. So there were 5 tracks. There was a give me one sec. An intro to Spring track, an intermediate advanced Spring track, an architecture track, a cloud native platforms track, an agile leadership track, and then I don't know if we have the replays of these. Okay, good. We don't. There was also a social track with like yoga and a magician and pet shows and a DJ and that kind of thing. So no, don't get me wrong. It was cool live. It was entertaining, but I was just double checking. I'm like, yeah, watching the DJ again as a recording may not be the most entertaining thing to do. But yeah, so the way we worked it was we had the live conference going on. After each session, there was a Zoom session that was available for Q&A with the speaker. And then we also had a Slack org set up where people could be asking questions all the time, and do our best to emulate. Bob, you mentioned in our conversations before the recording about how you're missing that the personal interaction.
Yep.
We did our best to emulate that as best you could on a virtual platform with the Zooms and with the Slacks, and to do our best to emulate that hallway track as best we could.
Yeah, no, that's been the tough part is just trying to get those kind of spontaneous conversations that you'd have in a hallway of a conference with people you just run into or people you haven't seen in a while. People are trying to emulate it. I haven't experienced a conference yet that's nailed that, but I'll have to keep checking stuff out, and maybe people will get better at it as we go on.
I'll be transparent. Yeah. I'm a hugger. I miss hugs.
Oh God!
Seriously, seriously, I miss hugs.
I do. Like I'm the quintessential extrovert, and this pandemic, oh my gosh, it's been so hard. So hard. I just like hug the monitor and go to bed. Like, so there'll be a vaccine in 2 months. It's okay.
Right.
Sure. I'm gonna have it in 3.
Please don't get me started on that.
This is the other show we do.
Back to Spring One though. Yeah. I liked it. I didn't attend the whole day on neither day, but I did attend the opening and a couple of sessions. They were pretty good. Cool. I did the intro to Spring Boot because I wanted to check that out, and I did the keynote, and from what I saw, it was really good. Cool.
Yeah. Maybe now is the time to shine. Maybe we should apply to be keynote speakers now that everything is virtual.
Hey, since I'm a registered, and for anybody out here who is registered to Spring One, they can go and take a look at any of the presentations then. Michael, is that true?
Yeah, so you can register at spring1.io and basically click on it, try and view any of them, and there will be a register link or a sign-in link if you already have. And you can register, and they're all available. It's a
good deal. I think that's the best thing that has come out of this situation for conferences is more kind of transparency and availability for people to attend sessions that wouldn't have had this option before. Also, not only to attend sessions, but conference, a chance to travel off there or get out to conferences. This is a really good opportunity to go to a jug or go to, conference and put your talk in and do one online there. Yeah,
no, I completely agree. And I have no insider baseball here, so don't take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I do believe that the success of these types of events are going to encourage companies to continue doing them, even once we get back to the in-person conference circuit, because the scope of who you can reach, you just can't do it any other way. I mean, like I said, normal Spring One conference. Spring One isn't a cheap conference. It's usually about $1,500, I think, just to walk in, plus travel. So, it's not a cheap conference, but we usually gather about 3,000 to 4,000 developers, 41,000 developers registered for Spring One. I mean, that's just, you can't beat that. And there's some corners of the world where it's just impractical to do the travel and whatnot. So I do think that this is going to be an ongoing thing, even once we get back to in-person stuff. And I think that's a good thing. In the days up to Spring One, I was this close to tweeting an idea to hike up attendance, but then I held back because I forgot, COVID, which was viewing parties. Like for virtual conferences, viewing parties make sense. Think if you're a manager at a company, I don't have the budget to send all my developers to a, including travel, $3,000 conference.
Yeah.
But I can't afford to buy them lunch for 2 days. Give them 2 days, stick them in a conference, offer to buy them lunch. The wealth of content, the wealth of knowledge you're going to get out of those 2 days is huge for the amount of money you'd spend. And so that's why I can't see us completely leaving this way of communicating behind, even once we get out of this pandemic.
And you can do virtual, parties, basically viewing parties too. I mean, you can all hop on, because that's the hard thing. And this is a question I have of the rest of the group, because one of the things, even within the user group space, that you have when you do things virtually is when the barrier to entry is so low, as in, hey, I just have to sign up. I didn't actually pay any money. I didn't have to, stick put any skin in the game, so to speak. And nobody's going to notice if I'm not there. Is there any tips that you guys have on how to stick to a schedule, or even justify it to your work to say, hey, this is important, even though it's free, I'm still taking time on a day? Because a lot of folks that I know, myself included, feel compelled to work more when they're remote the whole time or they're online with their company. And it's just, it may not be as big for you, Michael, because I know you've been remote for a few years now, but a lot of
it'll be eight next 2 weeks.
A lot of folks aren't in that mode. So is there any tips you have on setting time aside, or how you commit yourself to these things so that you actually go?
For me, it's no different than setting the boundaries from working from home in general. Now, that being said, full transparency, I didn't set those boundaries for myself for the conference. So I was multitasking. Like, I was doing other stuff during those talks. It's the nature of the beast, right? I literally have 2 screens sitting in front of me. One had talks up, one had code and email up. I mean, that's just the way it works, right? So that is probably the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest disadvantage of it is the lack of ability to really focus.
That's true, and it's certainly hard, especially in this time right now, this time frame, I should say, where it's conference season, really. September, October. This is busy times. There's a lot of conferences. You really are tempted to sign up for every one of these, but do you have a day job? Because if you do, you can't, So, I was asked to talk at a few, and it was like, you got to pick, because you can't do everything, And if you want to be able to attend anything, you have to take the time away, like Michael's saying. It's hard to multitask and really grasp at the full content.
Yeah, no, I feel that it's such a hard problem, right? Because like when you're sitting down like on a conference, listening to somebody, the speaker, for example, reacts to the audience, right? Like it asks questions to the audience, reads the room, and there are some people that are like have their laptops open, but that's not everyone. And for the people that actually like go in and listen, then they can formulate questions. But I feel that the bar is so much higher, like in the sense of keeping attention when you are at home, like when you're just looking at a screen and I can just click over here and see the news, and I can click over here and see what the latest email is, right? And you miss half of the information because and I think that is the biggest thing that irks me is that you lose the benefit of the in-person interaction. You gain the ability to be distracted easily, and you sort of have this fallback. It's like, it's all recorded. I can just watch it later, if I really need something. But then it just loses the appeal, and that's what like for me it has been hard to go to quote unquote online conferences, just because I feel that I can just watch a video from 2 years ago and it will be the same experience, right? And I know that we're trying to do like these things, like I didn't realize it went as far as having a social track, but even that has like it cannot replicate, right? Because like the way it will work is like there will be a closed circuit of people that you may know, and they're like calling you, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, and then there's surrounding people that are just curious onlookers, and there's even more other people that are just like like on the peripheries, just like listening in.
The fly on the wall, so to speak.
Yeah, like it's hard to replicate that where everybody is technically on the same physical distance. It's like quantum superposition where everybody is in front of you, right?
While true, there are things that a virtual event can do that we can't do in a real event. A great example of that is that the Spring One conference did an intro to Spring track, and it was really, really, really well attended. I mean, our first talk in that track was why use Spring, and it was geared for if you've never seen Spring before, if you're a manager and an analyst, maybe this much Java, why would you even consider Spring? I haven't seen the stats yet, but my gut is that was our best attended talk outside of keynotes. And if you think about running in, this is one problem conference has, right? Is all the attendees say, give us more intro content, and no conference ever does it. Part of that is that conferences speakers are reluctant to do it because they're afraid of they won't get their talks accepted. But also going back to as a manager, who am I going to send to these things? Am I going to send the college kid that just is out of college that doesn't know Spring to Spring One? No. So the people that have benefited most from that track never would have gone to Spring One in the first place. Mm-hmm. So we can reach a completely new audience by doing this that we couldn't have done any other way.
But so there is a couple of interesting parts. I think the counter argument, or not a counter argument, but there is a lot of intro to Spring. There are tutorials, there are actually tutorials, they actually walk you through it, right?
Agreed.
So there is a material. The one thing though that I think was an interesting take is that a conference does have curated content, meaning that usually, and there are some conferences that will be unnamed, but usually the conferences will have like a list of things that you think these talks are probably very good. And that is a problem that I can see that the conferences online are helping to solve, which is I don't know where to start because, there's, if I search tutorial Spring, I'll get 500 things, right? And if I go to a conference, then it will tell me exactly, look, this is the intro track. These are the contents that you probably want. I think the curating aspect of the conference is what make the audience, your registrants go up, because the internet is available, but not a lot of people know what to navigate to. And if Spring gives the stamp of approval, then it's okay, this is probably the best place to start.
I think also the fact that it's live and that it's happening here and now, because I guess I'm trying to interpret, because I'm trying to learn from you guys on what your strategies are, but it almost seems like you're saying one of the more effective ways is if you're going to eliminate your distractions, it's almost like you have to tell your work as if you're going to the conference but not paying for travel. It's I need the day off. I'm going to block off my schedule instead of being I'm going to watch this during lunch and catch up on things. It's I have to actually dedicate time and put it on my calendar and say, I am attending a conference right now. Don't bug me. And then I get the experience, or closer to the experience that I would. But having not have the travel, not have the hotel or anything like that, it does lower the financial bar where I can say, hey, you're a junior developer. I'm not buying you a hotel. I'm just giving you time off. Well, your rate isn't as high as some other people's anyways. I should feel good about doing that because you're going to get a lot out of this.
Completely agree. Yeah. I view this as, as a manager, this is a no-brainer for me. Give them the 2 days, like I said, if you were in person, buy them lunch. In this case, you're not. So figure something out. But the benefit of being able to get at this, these are people that probably wouldn't have gone to conferences anyways. Most companies have either a rotating cycle of you go this year, you go this year, you go this year kind of, or it's the architects go, right? It's usually one of those two scenarios, right? And so you got a much broader exposure to this stuff, which is going to level up your developers. It levels them up. it also gets them energized. Like I know for me, every time I leave a conference, I'm just more energized. I'm more excited to go back to work.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm thinking like the goal, like it, you know, junior essentially students and junior developers go to the user group. Like that will be their de facto like conference that they go to, right? Like it's after work, it's free, it's usually it's kind of funny, like the secret is that most of the speakers that usually go to like Java user groups are the same speakers that are speaking at conference, but that's like a little like secret. But yeah, no, I sort of agree. Now the other part that I think is interesting that I don't think we have figured out is if your audience is online, and if your audience is already on a computer somewhere watching these things, you know, like changing the format of what does it mean to be in a 1 hour session, right? Like usually the way these things go is somebody lectures in, you know, puts a PowerPoint or whatever, starts live coding. But an interesting take on this is like, look, you have a whole computer and we have your attention on your computer. We can make this not just a one-way medium, but a way to interact. And I know like there is sort of like the boot camps and stuff that we sort of do like in person, but it'll be interesting to see like maybe there's a way for optimizing the 1 hour session, because that's what usually they are, in a way that is interactive and can, you know, make the content stick. That will solve both the problem of you being disengaged because it's easy to hear somebody drawn out versus just actually doing stuff. You know, you open your IntelliJ, you open your stuff. I mean, there's questions about like you know what kind of environment you're running, but maybe there is a way for a speaker to be able to interact in such a way that other people are actively doing stuff. You know, that's sort of like a new lesson that we can probably learn, you know, now that we're all at home and with computers and attending live events.
Or you can do what my kids are forced to do when they're in remote learning is you have to force people to have the monitors on so you can see whether they're making eye contact or whether you're getting this or not.
Then you just put the rotating picture of like
there's in my local school district they've been doing the school district meetings via Zoom, at least Q&A for it via Zoom, and there's one person on the school board who has been sitting in a dark room, and he always looks like everybody's convinced the guy's playing a video game on his phone. Like he's looking down, it's obvious he's being illuminated from that angle. Everybody's assuming he's on his phone the entire call.
Yeah. But that is interesting because there could be an interesting take where, for example, you know, you create a project where, you know, like you actually hit an endpoint that the presenter is having, or you do stuff like where you're like everybody plays in a MMO game in that way, like, you know, you're submitting sort of like a calculation piece. You know, I think that's a better way to sort of like engage the interaction. I think that we master how to present in sort of like a conference setting where you have your PowerPoint, you do the live coding, you do all this. But what I think we haven't figured out is how to make it more engaging to people when we are in this virtual environment. Because then we have more ways to do it, like that. But it's something that we haven't explored. So,
yeah, it'd be almost like a workshop that way, you know. You could
like a 1 hour workshop where that is usually hard, right? Like doing a 1 hour workshop is hard.
Spring One delivered over 5,000 self-guided workshops this year.
That's cool. But I think Freddie, to your point, like if you wanted to have the person working along with you while you're doing your presentation, you would need a virtual machine for them to log into, because you want everybody to have the same environment, right? You don't want to hit, you know, it's either that or you have to tell them in advance before you attend the talk.
We have a couple like online IDEs now, right? Like there's
online IDE, online build server. You have to take it all.
Well, there's even to Josh's point, like there's even environment. It was a Strigo, Strigo.io. You can do the whole thing. It's an online cloud IDE plus shell. It's like it gives you everything. It's actually a wonderful tool.
It'll be
for training.
The way I'm thinking is it will be very fun. Like just to like, for example, people even if you're doing a machine learning to detect something, right? And then see what they come up with. So food for thought. I think we are past our mark already. I think Bob ran out of beer.
I'm out of beer, so I mean, we must be close to the end.
Datadog, or whoever wants to sponsor this podcast, if you want a longer session, we need more beer.
What's up, Josh?
Freddie, I was going to say, you also have to figure out how to do the null pointers, because we're missing the null pointers.
Ah, there you go.
On the guitar on the one screen, then you have somebody on the drums on the other screen. You know,
believe it or not, I'm actually recording for the null pointers like after this. So today is a very long day for me. Yeah, well, we're not doing anything concurrently live. That's asking the internet too much this day and age. But we are laying tracks together. So hopefully we'll have something by Friday. So.
There you go. See, maybe we'll have another thing to submit to Dev Nexus.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun.
Very nice.
All right. Well, I think that's all the news that we can manage to muster today. There were a couple other things that we couldn't get to, but we'll definitely get it our next time. And, everybody stay safe. Attend conferences. Take a time. This is the best time. There's so much content, online content and video being produced. This past 6 months, everybody's doing it, and everybody's making them available. So this is our harvest time to actually say, oh, I wanted to learn about this. There's videos about it, and just go ahead. Watch us, talk about them. Go watch, get a playlist, and actually that could be an interesting idea if we can curate some of that material too. But the idea is go have fun and stay safe. And with that. And this is another OffHeap episode. This is Freddie signing off.
Bob signing off.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @OffHeap.
All right. And with that, we are done.